So the cube itself has nothing. If we just zoom in, make sure we actually click on Maya. Alright, so in our channel box and layer editor on the right hand side of Maya, alright, you can see the cube's attributes there. You can see its shape and everything that is inputting data into that cube. Now that cube has 2 bend deformers, a tweak, and its standard polygonal attributes that it spawns with. Alright, now I can change these. So if I change these subdivisions back to 1 and then get it to play the animation again, and that doesn't deform quite as well. Alright, it's a little bit more rigid. But as soon as you start to add more in, let me just get you there. You can see how that bend is now having more of an effect on it. I always say something higher than 10 is quite nice, so 12s. 12s give you a nice curve, at least in some respect. These bends, if I just pause that, there we go. You can see here the curvature of this bend is constantly being affected by this. Alright? And all that's doing is it's being fed information from our controller, through our rig. So let's go back to the start of it. Alright. So, a few things I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you some deformers, and I'm going to show you how to actually turn it into a usable rig, so you guys can start animating. So, first things first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cube. So we're going to poly modeling at the top, click the cube, and it will appear in my outliner on the left.
Max, I hate to interrupt, but this is asking for a license fee or something.
Good lord. One next to loop will work.
Should work.
Alright, it should work. Yeah. Alright. Now, when you're trying to do when you create your new poly modeling cube, what you see is in your outliner a new cube will appear. Alright, if you need to display your outliner, let me just zoom in so you guys can see it a little bit easier. It is this icon there. Alright, so that icon will allow you to immediately sort of open this side menu where it shows everything in your scene. Alright, an outliner is important for animating because it allows you to see what you're animating and click direct control over it, rather than, say for instance in here, if I go, well I want to select this, and accidentally selecting the cube and doing something with that. Alright, now when you add a cube into your scene, it'll either come in 2 ways. It'll either come in like this, where you just click it and it appears, or it will be using interactive creation. Just navigate my thing, where when you click it, it turns your marquee to this, where you have to then click and drag to create your cube. Alright? Doesn't matter which way it works for you, I'm happy either way. I'm just going to turn that back off. Alright. Just scale my cube up. So, zoom out. There we go. So, like I said before, cubes are wonderful pieces of geometry because we can essentially do whatever we want with them. When it comes to modeling, we can break them down, we can cut them up, we can shape them into whatever we desire, essentially. But for animating and that, we can do a lot of stuff with it. So, setting up a rig kind of need to, like I said before, you need to understand what you want to do with it. So my plan is essentially to get this to roll over onto its side, like the one behind it. All right, so you can see how it's tilting on those two pieces there. So I need to be able to let it rotate on those two angles. Does anyone know how I'm going to do that? No? Awesome. All right. So, trying to get it to rotate from this, all it's going to do is make it rotate on the side there. And rather than rotating it like so and then moving it to be on the exact same point, it's not going to work. Was you going to say something? What? Pardon? No, the blue circle will just rotate it on its spot like that. Alright? I need to change the pivot point. However, if I change the pivot point and press D, right, so I can move that down here. Alright, if I want to snap it, what I can do is I can hold V, and what that does is it allows it to snap to a vertex, and I can just kind of drag it along the middle, like so. And that will allow me to then pivot on an edge, like so. However, what's the issue now?
Still goes in the floor slightly.
It doesn't matter if it goes on the floor.
What would you manipulate the shape?
If I try and manipulate the shape, it's all going to come off that point. But if I now try and change the shape, if I now try and rotate this from the other side, if I keep changing my pivot point, when I animate, it's going to change based on that pivot point again. Alright, so I can't have it rotating from two angles at once, which is really, really annoying. So we have to create a group to facilitate those rotations. So I want to keep my standard pivot point on the same in the center. Alright, I don't really want to change that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go select my object, to modify. That is everywhere I need to be. This is there. Alright, I'm going to go to modify and center pivot. Alright, and what that'll do is I'll immediately put my marquee right at the center of it. Alright, so you can see there, it's right in the center again. Alright, as you can see with this one, it's right in the center. So, now with that there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my cube, press Ctrl and G. Now what that does is that automatically creates a group on top of your selected objects. Alright, and it will put a pivot point right at the center there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press D again while selecting the group. Alright, and then again V, snap in, and there we go. So now I can rotate on this without actually affecting the pivot of the group, of the cube. All right. Now it can be quite complicated to understand this. So, because obviously when if I then took this out of there, they're independent of each other. So, when you look at creating your rig, when you start to group things, you get what's known as inheritance information. So if I then rotate this, drag you in there, now that still has its own data. Alright? Well, what that's going to do is anything I then try to do to this, it's going to inherit that transform data from there and kind of send it a bit cuckoo. So always make sure before you do anything, before you group anything, all of your information, all of your objects are exactly where they need to be. Alright, you don't want them to be inheriting random bits of data. Alright, so ignore the animbot if you don't, when you don't have that in yours. That's just a plugin I've got. Alright, so I'll show you how this one sits, because all it is essentially me just creating groups. Alright, so our hierarchy for the rig that we're going to create has 5 groups, okay? So it's got bottom left, bottom right, center, top right, top left. All right, so all of those have different pivot points. So you can see there, as I click these, they're all at different pivot points. If by any chance you wanted to create it where there's 4 at the top and 4 at the bottom, you do that. And that. If you want to create something that's going to use all of those, this is again the important part of a rig, is to understand what you're using it for. All right. This part of the anticipation rig is just to show how to create anticipation, nothing else. All right. So each of these groups, standard affairs, they're just groups within inside each other. However, obviously, if I rotate from the top right, I'm going to have to do that from my rig. If I rotate from the top right, you can see it's going to do that. So what possible reason would I need it to do that? Well, obviously, when that then flips over like so, top right is now over there. All right. So be aware where your points will go after you move them. So I always know that top right is going to be over there. But top left, now is this way up in the ether. Bottom right, that's now down there. And bottom left is up there. So when your rig changes and you move stuff, it's going to flip it about. Rigs are complicated. Don't be afraid if you're like, I don't get this at all. Right, so first things first, create a cube for me, guys.
Hey Matt,
Yes.
what they're doing this is saying it's asking to select either a serial number or a network license.
When you downloaded Maya using your student account, it should have had a serial key that came with it.
Will it open from my email?
Yeah, it should go through your email. If not, you can just go on the website again, re-download it, and it'll give you the serial key again. All right, if you feel confident enough to give this an attempt now, by all means go for it. All right, once you've got your cube, first thing we want to do is make sure that it is actually dead center and sitting on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift it. It's doing that. That's close enough. Doesn't have to be picture perfect. And get it on there. Once it's there, what I want to be able to do is essentially wipe this data here. All right, I don't want these random bits of data in there. I want them all to be 1 or 0. Anyone know how you do that? Freeze transforms. Where do I find freeze transforms, Kyle?
Modify and then it down.
So selecting your object, modify, freeze transforms, and all of this data, all the translate, rotate, go to 0, and your scales go to 1. That means that no matter what, you know that when translate is at 0, everything else is going to be at 0.
I just don't have it.
All right, hold right click over your object. Go to object mode. Yeah. All right. For those of you that have not used Maya in a long time, if you hold right click over it, you will see edge, object, UV, multi, face, vertex face, and vertex. If you click vertex face, it does that. Don't be afraid. If you're only able to select edge, faces, you're in face mode. Just hold right click over your object, click object mode. When it's got this weird beigey outline, you'll know you're in object mode. Right. So at this point, what we want to do is we want to add those. Just get rid of transform geometry on there. There we go. We want to add those groups. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control G 5 times. All right. So Control G 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Until it says on the left Group 5 in my outliner. And again, find your outliner. Look on the left hand side and it's this icon there. Yeah, Control G 5 times. Alright? So that in your outliner you can see group 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cube. Eh? Yes, I'm going to go through the sides now, yeah. Alright? So I'll go through that again. So select your cube, make sure there's nothing in it in your outliner, and then Control G 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, and that's going to set up our rotations. So, to expand our outliner, what we've got in there, again, click our outliner, which is this icon here, and click the little pluses next to group 5.
That part I understood.
Alright. I'm glad that that simple thing is what you understood.
Simple part is like,
Alright.
I could do that.
Now, group 3 is always going to be the center. Alright? Because that's the center of all of our transforms. So you can just double click center and rename it to center. Alright? Now, I always go from left to right. That's just how I am. At the top here, I went from right to left because apparently that's what I wanted to do there. I have no idea why. But I prefer to go from left to right. Alright, so you can either call them BL and BR or TL and TR, or bottom left, bottom right, top right. Alright? I'm just going to rename them bottom left, bottom right. Top left and top right. Like that. So your outliner should look something like this. So, what we want to do now is make sure we edit these pivot points again. So they're exactly where they need to be. So by default, let's have a look at center. Alright? So, wherever we are, center will never be at your center right now. Alright? It's going to be at the center of the world, but not the center of our local object. Alright? So again, what you can do, modify, center pivot. Alright? If you want to stop going into modify, what you can do is you can create your own hotkey for it, or your own quick bar. But to create your own quick bar, you hold Control and Shift and then left click. Alright? It will seem like nothing's happened until you look at your current bar where you'll see CP has appeared. Alright, let's get rid of that because I don't need it. Alright, so it's that. And if you click CP, you can see it just immediately brings our pivot to the center. Alright? Now the truly annoying part, especially for those people that have got dyspraxia or any sort of coordination issues and that, so I feel you if you have that. Alright, well, you need to pick your left and right. Alright, so for this one here, we've got, let's click that. So at this one, we've got our right here. So that's my right on this one. Alright, and that's my left on this one. So I can follow suit and do that. However, you need to make sure that you understand which is your left and right as you do both. Otherwise, it's going to get weird. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create a cylinder. just to remind myself. All right. So now, if the cylinder is behind it, like so, my left is on the left, and my right is on the right. If it's like that, it's flipped. All right. That's just a quick reference point to me. You don't have to do that in any way, shape, or form. I'm doing that for me, so it's easy to remember. Look, I'm sorry, I have trouble with coordination. And telling my left and right. All right. You don't have to do that. Like I said, that's just for me. So, I then select bottom left in my outliner. All right. So I want to make sure it is on my left, which is here. So I press D, and my pivot point will change. All right. So it'll change into something that I can move without changing without actually moving my object.
Sorry to ask a really stupid question. How do you rotate the camera?
How do you rotate the camera? Hold Alt, left click, and rotate that way.
Right.
All right.
I've got a coin.
So if your pivot point looks like this, and you try and move it, you're going to move the whole cube. All right. So you press. Did you say oh no?
Oh no, you're hearing things.
So press D and it'll change to this. This means we can move it without affecting the actual object. And again, press V. Press and hold V, and you can see the little square box there turns into a circle. This means it's locking, at least. If you don't want to use those, you can use these keys at the top. So we've got snap to live object, snap to curve, snap to point, snap to control vector, and snap to grid. All right. If I hold V, you can see that one lights up. That's snap to point. So if I hold V, just snap, you can see it's snapped to that section there. All right. And that's bottom left done. I then want to do that for the rest of them. All right. So I press D, hold V, snap across, like so. Center's fine. Top left, snap, up, and then D, V, snap, up, and then snap again. So all I've literally done is just move those points to where I need them. So now if I want to rotate from the top right, and I rotate, it rotates from there. If I want to rotate from the top left, rotate from there, rotate from center, rotates from there, bottom right there, and bottom left there. Yep. It doesn't matter if it goes to the top left or the top right, it's about the angle that we're pivoting on. All right. If it's snapping to a point like this, just feel free to drag it towards the center. All right. The more geometry we have on this, the easier it becomes, but you don't need to worry about that just yet. Get off that. There we go. All right. So now what we want to do is set up our deformers. All right. So I'm going to create a new cube just to show you this separately. You don't have to create a new cube. All right. So let's do Shift I. All right. So a deformer. Does anyone know what a deformer is? Okay. It bends. It deforms your object. All right. Essentially, I can access deformers by literally going to deform and the drop down. All right. Tons of deformers in here. The ones we're going to use are the non-linear ones. All right. So they're in a little icon there. So let me go up. So deform, non-linear, and these are the ones that you can use. All right. You can use bend, flare, sine, squash, twist, and wave. So using something like bend, you have to have your object selected first, by the way. So selecting that cube, then going to nonlinear bend. All right. What I then do is in my attribute editor with my cube selected, I can click the input for bend, like so. Left click curvature, move into my thing, and if I right click and drag, you can see it's activating that curvature. So it's getting that bend in there. All right, and it does weird stuff like this. All right. Now, when using deformers, the more geometry you have, the better the results you're going to get. All right. So if you click the cube again, go to Polycube, whichever number yours is. Mine's Polycube 6. All right. In there, you'll see the subdivision widths and height. All right. If you increase those, you can see that bend deformer has much more tangibility. You can see the curve a little bit easier in there, and it becomes a lot more blocky as you include that geometry. Go for it. So if you want to scroll and do it, you would select the text, middle click and drag somewhere in your screen, and you can drag it up and down that way, like so. Nice little shortcut there. All right. Switch everything to 8. All right. Now, a bend deformer in your object will look something like this. All right. So you may see this thing popping in and out. That's your bend deformer, and you can move it by selecting the bend handle in your outliner. You can move it and you can see what that's doing, how that's affecting it. If you rotate it, you can get all sorts of interesting shapes out of it. If you go to the inputs, again, you can change the lower bounds. You can change the higher bounds. So that actually, as you move this towards itself and then rotate, you get this very, very weird gelatinous cube type thing. Right? Yes.
Out of curiosity, if you make like a full tire donut,
You would need more geometry on there, yeah. But yeah. If you, like our illustrious leader has just stated, want to create something that curves all the way around, you just need more mass. All right, you can get it to do that. And it'll all link in together in a very nice sort of format. So, bend deformer's quite nice. Let's get rid of that. All right, I'm just going to delete that bend deformer now. And set this scale back to 444. Other ones, let's have a look. Let's do flare. So flare, quite simple. Flare allows it to become convex or concave. You can see you can adjust these settings to warp it in a fashion which you feel nice. So you could create a nice little sort of column base if you wanted, or if you wanted something to splat and change shape as it drapes over something, you can use that. So say for instance you wanted to create something that like a cube that sort of when it fell down it kind of just expanded into the ground, you can use a flare. Go for it. Yes. If you decide you wanted to actually make this a proper model, you can go to not freeze transforms, edit, delete all by type, history, and it's just a random model now. All right, so let's get rid of that deformer. All right, You've got other ones, so let's have a look at twist is always an interesting one. Twist. So if you needed to create some like twisted metal, that's a really nice one to do. You can twist two things together to create like a rope, because I knew that's where you were going with that. This one, however, you can see it's got a definitive end and start point. So in your twist, you would need to change the higher and lower bounds to incorporate that. Right, but again, it's all limited by your geometry, and you can see how that geometry is now stretched over that. Alright, but it does produce some very, very nice results. Deformers are not only used obviously for 3D modeling, but they're also used for animation, which is why we love them so much. They are wonderful creatures. Alright, just set that back to normal. And final one. Let's have a look at the squash. So squash is fun. Alright, so squash is essentially if you want something to splat on the ground properly. Alright. So by default, it looks like this. So what you can do is you can have it literally drag onto the ground. Let's bring that bound back up and tell it to expand like a factor of 10. That when we then move this through, you can see how it gets real thin and then can splat out like that. You can increase the smoothness of it, and that one as well. It's less rigid. So if you need to create something like a hourglass, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. That's how you do it. Something like that. And you would just let's do that over 82 frames. There we go. So to do that, it would literally be something like this. Pretty simple. Wow, let's turn that to be even smoother. So all of these deformers have their different properties that you can use, and you can combine them. You can use multiple of the same ones. And that's essentially how we got that cube from before. So if I do Shift and I again and get me back. I was upside down that entire time. Alright. So, what I want to do to my cube now, this one here, is let's increase the geometry on there. So again, selecting the cube, go to Polycube on my inputs, change that. I'm going to change it to, let's have, not 18, let's do 12. Alright, you can see my grid, the amount of polygons I've got on there is now quite substantial. And that, does anyone want to do 12 times 6? Hey? It's 72. Yeah. Alright, so that's 72 on each face, which is incredible. Alright, now.
That's just for a cube.
What we're going to do is we want to add our deformers to this. But what we want to do is we want them to deform in a way, obviously, which works for us. So, make sure I'm facing the right way, left and right. Alright. So, we want it to wobble this way. Alright. And we also want it to wobble, down as well. Alright, very much like this one. So if I show you this one, so this one wobbles that way. It also wobbles that way. So that when it hits flat, it can wobble backwards and forwards again. So you can see my two bend deformers sticking out of there. So I select the cube, go to deform, go to nonlinear, click bend. Now, at the moment, it is in there. If you want to be able to see through your objects, what you can do is you can just click this, and that's transparency, and it turns all of your objects transparent. Alright? which can be quite nice when working with deformers because you know roughly where everything is then. So, I select this and I look at my bend here. So if I then mess with the curvature, you can see I'm getting that wobble I want that wobble there. However, what it is doing is it's still wobbling my bottom, which I really don't want it to do. I just want it to wobble the top. So to fix that, I can remove the lower bound. And what that's now only going to do, when I mess with the curvature, it's only going to wobble the top. However, what's the issue with that? Pardon me. Anyone notice the issue if I just do this? It clips into itself because it's only going from halfway. So I have to move this down. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag it down. Alright. Now your cube should be roughly flush with the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold X, which does snap to grid. And I'm just going to straight down to the bottom, so that when I mess with the curvature again, you can see it's actually wobbling from the bottom. Again, what's the new issue? Hey? It's a bit rigid. If you look at the top, it's a bit rigid. So what I can do is I can increase the higher bound then to let that curve go through it. So that when it wobbles, you're starting to get that where it feels a little bit more bendy. So you could actually get it to wobble, wobble, wobble. Like so. Essentially, if it looks like something that'll entertain my niece, that's good. Alright, so that's one done. I then select the cube again, create another bend deformer. Now this one, obviously I wanted to wobble up and down this face. So this time I'm just going to rotate it. So again, if I want to rotate, press E on the keyboard. With it selected, I'm going to rotate it that way. Now when rotating in Maya, you can rotate as accurately as you want, or realize which rotation you're using. For me, it's the Z axis. I'm just going to turn that to 90. Alright. Now, when rotating deformers, you have to be aware. When it's in a straight line like this, you have no idea which way it's actually going to go. I just know it needs to rotate roughly along that axis. So to select it, I'm then going to just mess with the curvature. And lo and behold, for once in its life, it's immediately the way I want to rotate it. I want it to be. So again, I'm just going to mess with the bounds. So this one is again that one. I'm just going to turn that to say 2.5. Again, this time I'm just going to use the V key to snap because then it's flush with this face here. And then if I mess with that, you can see we're only getting the curvature on that one, which is exactly what we want. Alright, so if you guys could get to that stage where you've got the two bend deformers in there, that'd be great. I'll come around and help anyone because this is obviously quite tricky. Hands immediately shoot off. I can go to Jack.
Alright.
The bit where I think
do
you
it,
figured out that.
but I can't save it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we want to do is press Control G.
So really, if you don't put the doing anymore, there's a consent button. The future reference.
Yes, that could be.
Yes, but if you didn't steering, I will have the reminder of how to do it. But how do you make groups? But then you make groups.
Control G. Yeah.
That's
For some reason, like, it just isn't perfect. It's all there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, select you. Change each change to 12.
Oh, God.
And, now, you need bent
Alright. Well, I don't really know. Alright, so you with this one? Yeah. Now, so what's the young one? So we're like that. That's fine.
So, I don't really know why I'm waiting for us. I listened to the call, but there's
And now, you should add the bottom. Rolling. Yep. Right. I didn't get that.
The other one, we've got two bent handles, one on one side and one on the other side. Right, so one's to fall at the top and one's to fall on one side as well.
Oh, right, so the top right and left.
So we
Literally, I'm going to the say casino, shuts it down. Going to say C, shuts it down. He just doesn't work. Same just doesn't work on it.
You have to leave it back on the new So what we'll do is
Node-based programming? Look, I don't know what that is. Those are nodes, and Josh hates them in programming.
Oh yeah, the way
Oh. Yeah, he likes the whole typing thing, the clicking of
The whole typing thing.
Totally do.
yeah.
To be honest, I prefer typing up code anyway.
Yeah, imagine trying to do a jigsaw puzzle for or code for a jigsaw puzzle. It's not the way it should be. Do you imagine that? Like, you know, like just imagine like how much lamer hacking scenes would be if instead of lines of text flying down, tapping.
It's like, yeah. Like all about hacking, but worse.
Yeah. You just trade in the forcing like scenes of just seeing lines of text flying down. And trade it for lots of nodes just being
That seems to be a lot good.
Wait, hold on, did you end up watching?
Yeah.
This is what I showed you. I'm guessing I actually copied something. Did you like it?
walk me through it.
It's like impossible. Mission passed.
Like it's half an hour, you're awesome.
I know, right?
Play the GTA music.
And the fights. Oh my
What
god.
film are you talking? What's
Made by two people with a green screen in their
Oh,
face.
you mean that film?
How about you don't talk for the remainder of the day?
Do not speak to heretics.
No.
I think this is right. I think this is right.
What is a
Like really tiny amount and I don't get why.
just crank up the values.
Just crank up the value.
Oh, but like the value of the code.
No.
Tiny.
Then crank it up. Click, then drag. Right.
I am.
Wait,
I caps it at 3.
Alright, press on it then. Now type it. Oh!
You asked me this.
Maybe Control Z. I'm not. Control Z. Control Z.
Yeah, it like caps it at 3 and then more. It dies.
Well then, put it at like 10. Not 10 million.
But then as soon as I move it, it goes back to 3.
The good thing is, it's a good thing that this is recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good thing that this is recorded.
I messed up on a step.
Exactly.
I've been able to
It's at least at home,
Right,
I
I'm
can do
doing
this.
this.
At least at home, I'll actually be able to say this. The problem is, there's nowhere on mine. Apparently, there's nowhere on mine So you could say
Right,
the
okay.
data. And I think that's why it's I want to say that.
I just hope a lot of this is.
All right, while you guys are at this stage, file and save your scene, all right? If it's working.
Here's the issue.
What?
Why
Oh,
won't it save?
yours closes.
Yeah,
All
mine
right,
just.
you keep going. You're in Ireland.
Oh, man.
All right, you only get one chance.
I did, but when I'm
Okay,
clicking
now.
to put it back on, it says it's unable to locate valid my DIR. But it says,
It's an
yeah,
I mean, you want to say
vibrate.
it won't. I've just tried to save it now. It's just closed.
Why did you do that?
I tried to say.
I told you don't do that. You're in Iron Man mode.
Yeah, literally just. It's a good thing that this lesson's recorded. That's one of the good things. At least I could do that at home, and I know my work at home. Oh yeah.
I wrote it for you now.
I forgot about that.
That should work now.
But I think I've got the idea of where to put the orders and stuff. Because
Okay, I'm aware that even for people that have used Maya previously, this is a bit of a head melter.
yeah, because we're
Oh, you guys want to create a rig? We are.
yeah, and now I want to kill myself.
This isn't even like a rig on a person. This is a rig for.
That's the thing. This is a rig for a cube. This is a rig for a cube.
This is a rig for Super Meat Boy.
Seriously, editing, right? Putting the animation on a blade of grass is easier than a human. And the worst thing is, I looked on the website, we have rigs that we can use. We have rigs on canvas that you can actually use.
All right, who is not at this stage but wanting to get there, and who is not at this stage and just kind of going, let's just kind of watch.
Animated now.
You're trying to animate. So you're just watching.
Basically, for me personally, not even watching none of it's just going in.
All right, that is the reason why these lessons are also recorded.
Just play with it. That's
Right.
That's way to do it.
Which bit you want now?
I'm literally a 10-2 manual.
That's fine.
That's
Yeah, but like I don't know what to do.
What does he say when he does the fucking skadoosh?
You translate white.
I think that's how
Translate white.
Poe would be able to defeat Thanos, even with the Infinity Gauntlet.
I mean, to be honest, what's his face just been called a giant cloud of dust. So.
Like, how does it work? Is it just in your hand? I don't know.
It's like Fist of the North Star, you hit somebody in the right pressure points and it just like splash.
I don't think that's Kung Fu. I think that's dark magic.
What? What's it got Kung Fu?
There's the skadoosh, the finger hold.
Yeah, that's not a genuine thing.
Yeah,
You'd hope it wouldn't be.
that's not Kung Fu, man.
That's not like holding somebody with that. The whooshy finger hold is not a good. It's not an actual hold.
That's just murder. Poe has murdered a man.
Actually, yeah, that's the thing. The film makes like him. Basically, he's just killed him. He say, oh, he beat him, but he's dead.
Also, yeah, like Adam mentioned earlier, he turns into like dust or whatever. The thing is, it's in the air. When everyone goes back, they're literally breathing in 500 dust.
Well, it's the dust of everything. Hang on a minute. One question is though. I've got a question now. How did they get back so quickly?
No idea.
Because the dust would have, yeah, it's a big pile of dust, but they were hours away. They were an hour away, but continuity dictates that they were always there. How? It's not a terrible movie. It's not exactly the greatest film. That's his opinion.
I watched a really
It's
weird,
wrong.
like, quaint.
No, hang on a minute. Someone's opinion cannot possibly be wrong.
That's the joke. The idea that your opinion is so bad it is fundamentally
But Classic is not.
I saw a really weird Quentin Tarantino film like on Saturday, and this guy had like a revolver on his belt, but it was shaped like a
It was shaped like a what?
It was shaped like his balls. Like it had two chain mounted barrels,
Oh no.
and it was weird as hell.
Alright.
I didn't see much.
That sounds like a comedy.
Yeah, it's like graphic.
Control-G.
I
I don't know, it was
Alright.
really
What I'll
dark
do is
in the
I'm gonna go
beginning,
through the rest of
just
it now.
into really weird. It was like a really weird Mexican bar, just like it was full of vampires.
It needs to be lower down.
Yeah.
Alright. So, you should be at a stage now. Everyone. If not, and you're just watching, by all means, you should be at a stage now where if I select the cube, I can see my bend deformers. For me, it's bend 4 and bend 3. Alright. Let's turn transparency off. Where if you move one curvature, it does this. And if you move the other curvature, it does this. Alright. That's the stage we want to be at. Alright. Don't worry if it ends up doing something like that. Just make sure your curvature is set to 0. Alright? Because now, if you rotate this, what's the issue?
In the floor.
Alright? Look a little closer.
It's not bending, it's just kind of balancing.
Why is it not bending, Rob? Anyone take a wild guess by looking at our bend deformers? Why it's not bend? Why nothing's? What's wrong with it? No, they're not parented, which means I mean,
He ain't right.
technically you're not wrong. They are orphaned. All right.
What do you mean by that?
It's a term. It's a genuine term.
Yeah, yeah, it's not got the inheritance, has it?
It's not got the inheritance, so it's not moving along with this. When I rotate this, my bend deformers aren't moving. All right. It might be a little bit easier if I actually turn the curvatures on to show you what I mean. So if I turn that one to there, and then rotate bottom left.
Oh.
All right. My bend deformers aren't following it. So to make sure that they follow and they are inherited, in my outline, you will see the two bend handles. What I have to do is I have to put them inside the cube. So no matter which direction that cube's facing, these will follow it. All right. Now to do that, I select by left clicking. I then middle click and drag until P cube is highlighted, and then the bend handle appears in there. And I do the same with the other one, like so. So now, if I rotate from the bottom left, it's like magic. And then I can obviously then change these to 0 again. And change that to 0. Right? It's the easiest way of making sure something goes back to 0 is literally clicking the object you want to take to 0, looking at your attributes and just zeroing them out. Alright, don't try and guesstimate it. Easiest way. Alright. Now I have roughly the rig I want. The component parts are built, I just need to actually assign it a controller. Alright. Now, for those of you that have used or seen any footage of animation of characters or anything like that, this thing here will be quite familiar. This is a controller, all right, or more aptly and usefully known as a NURB or a curve, all right. Now, these curves that we can create at any given point are wonderful for creating all sorts of weird and wonderful shapes. But for this, we are just going to use a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Curves and Surfaces at the top and click the circle. Alright. I'll pop that into my environment. What I'll do is I'm going to just do V. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to scale it up first. So to scale it up, press R. I'm just going to click and drag from the center. I'm then going to snap it to the very middle of my object. There we go. Looks roughly equilateral anyway. And then modify freeze transforms. Alright, so that's that. This is going to be my controller. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename it Controller Cube. Alright, the reason why I've called it Controller Cube is I've already got one called Controller Anticipation. Now this is where it gets real easy. I select top right, middle click and drag into Controller Cube. Done, parented. Now if I want to adjust anything, if I want to move my cube, I literally just select the circle and it moves it. No issues whatsoever. Right. Just like this. So if you guys could quickly do that for me. So let's create a cube, create a circle. Let's go by going to Curves and Surfaces, clicking that. Making sure it's at the center or roughly at the center of your cube beneath it. And then just renaming the controller and then dragging your hierarchy into it. Alright, by clicking the top one, which should be top right or top left, depending on which one you want it to do. Okay, so while you're doing that, I'll explain a couple of extra bits. So, if I select my the one I made earlier, this one here, ignore the fact it's got red next to it. That's just to show that it's got keyframes on this frame. You'll notice that it's different to the one we just created. So this one has translate X, Y, and Z, rotate X, Y, and Z, scale X, Y, and Z, and visibility. This one has top left, top right, center, bottom left, bottom right, bend vert, and horizontal. All right. These are important parts of your rig, so we don't have to go in and click bend handles all the time. All right. Anyone know what these are?
Attributes.
Attributes. Well done. You get a cookie.
Okay.
All right. Now these attributes allow us to drive everything from here without having to worry about anything else. We don't have to go in. We don't have to click these inputs or outputs. We can literally just adjust these, and it will adjust our animation for us. An important part of animating is making sure you never actually touch the original value you want to tweak. You're always using a rig somewhere else, all right, which is driving it. All right, it allows you greater control. You're not going to have something that's animating it from a different part of your hierarchy and creating all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. You're only animating these parts here. So let's add these attributes. So I select my controller there. Now I've noticed some of you are using the attribute editor. Stop and literally click the channel box and layer editor. It looks like this. All right, it lists everything easily. It's not nested in tabs. What you do is you click edit and click add attribute. And I'll bring up this little guy. Move you here, that's fine. Alright, so attributes can be used for many things. A lot of them are to drive things within your scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a series of attributes. So I'm going to call it bottom left. Alright, let's just zoom out a little bit more so I can actually get the whole thing in. There you go up. Oh, you are just going to be slightly out, aren't you? There we go, that'll do. Alright, now if you click OK, it'll close the whole thing. If you just click add, it just adds it. What was that one I just added? Bottom left. Alright, so you essentially create them for everything that we're going to do. So center, add, top left, top right, and then bend horizontal, and bend vertical. And then last one, click OK. And you can see there, it's now added all of those in. At the moment, they do nothing. If I try and just do that, it literally does naff all. All right. But the idea of attributes is you can link them to other objects. Now this is where it gets really complicated, and I even had to redo it again myself last night because it just melts my mind. So good luck with this. I'm just going to save it. All right. Once you've created those attributes, which are really simple to do, what we're going to do is we're going to link these up. All right. Now, I recommend at this point, don't follow with me, just watch. All right. If you want to take the risk and do it, by all means. All right, because I am bound to mess up at some point in this bit. All right, it's just that day. So, with my controller selected, I click Edit, and I click Connection Editor. All right, arguably one of the most powerful parts of Maya, the Connection Editor. It allows us to connect things together. Bit like node-based programming in a way. It's basically saying you will take an input from this. All right, its most simplest form. So, on the left we have our outputs, on the right we have our inputs. All right, what I want is if I input something, I want it to output something else. All right, so let's have our input data this way, reload right. This is where it gets interesting. So, I want my controller cube to be on the left, so I click controller, click reload right, and then I click bottom left and reload left. Alright, so on the left I will have bottom left, you can see the text there, and on the right, controller cube. This is a list of all the attributes and variables that come with your objects. So I scroll down on the right until I see my new things. What I do is I click bottom left. All right. Now, when you click something in here, it essentially grays out everything that you're not going to be able to attach it to. All right. Now, what do we want bottom left to do as a variable, as an attribute? What do we want it to do?
Rotate.
We want it to rotate. All right. We want it to drive that rotation. All right. What I do is I scroll down until I find rotates. All right. Not rotate pivot, rotate. Now, rotate by itself is grayed out. All right. Which is a real red herring. But if you click the little plus sign next to it, these simple values here are there. It's because bottom left is a single attribute, and these are single attributes. Rotate as a whole is a combination of 3. It's a coordinate system. All right. Now I want it to rotate Z, hopefully. When they're linked together, you'll see bottom left and rotate Z are now both in italics. What am I going to do? I'm just going to move that to the side there. So now, if I select this and I click that, you can see now I'm actually rotating on that axis. Because what this is doing is bottom left is now driving that rotate Z key. All right, simple enough. He says as he's panicking inside that he doesn't mess up again. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to do bottom right. This is where things inevitably mess up. So you click bottom right, and then you click bottom right. Notice how rotate Z is still blocked out. That is because every time you select a new object, you need to reload. So we want to reload a new input. So we click reload left, click rotate, and so on. All right? Do not get in the habit of just immediately doing it over and over again. Otherwise, it's going to get a lot weird. Because otherwise, if I then click that and that, center now no longer governs rotate Z. All right? Top left does. So if while I'm animating, I go, well, let's just rotate from the top, from the Z. Wait, center's not doing anything. Oh, wait. So you can get quite angry if you do that. Just be aware. All right. So center, rotate Z. Top left, left. And then top right. Like that. That's not in italics anymore. That worries me. Yeah, let's leave it at that. I think that's fine now. All right. Now, when they're all in italics, just go through them again. So when you click bottom left, reload left. Bottom left is to that one. Bottom right is to that one. Center is to that one. Top left is to that one, and top right is to that. Okay. The reason why mine are rotate Z is because I already knew I would be rotating on the Z axis. All right, because this one is done in the same direction, so on and so forth. Yours might not be. All right. What you should do is select one of these prior to it, and just try rotating in the direction you want it to go. All right. That value, when you rotate it a little bit, will be displayed here. So yours might be in rotate X or rotate, hopefully not rotate Y. Either rotate X or rotate Z. All right. Then they're the ones you drive to rather than the one I've used. All right. Once you're done and everything is correct, you can close. And then your rotate's done. If you want to go straight into doing the bends, we can do the bends. This is again where it gets a bit annoying, because you've got to hunt for this one. So I'm going to click the bend handle and rotate that in on the left. All right. What I want to do is I want to be looking for a certain thing called curvature. Now, when you click the bend handle and you reload, it says bend handle there. However, what you're looking for is this input here. So you select input on there, so bend 3 for me, reload left, and bend 3 appears. All right? Is it melting your head, Rob?
I'm just gonna go die.
Okay, that's fine. All right? So you select your handle, you then select the input, and then click reload left. That enables you to select the curvature. Right? So click bend horizontal, bend curvature, and let's just make sure it's the one that we want. It might be the other bend handle I want. So let's click U, bend horizontal, that's bend vertical. So if you do mess up like that, don't worry about it. You can literally just click that, curvature, and it sorts that out. Again, do a bend handle, bend 4, reload left, that, and then it's done. Alright. Bend vertical, bend horizontal, that one, center, top left, top right. That is how you create a rig. It is annoying, it is time consuming, and it can melt your brain to the point where you want to cry a little bit. Alright? But it is important as animators to give it a go. Alright? To understand that it's not just
skinning and weighting bones and things like that. Creating a rig is something for something simple as this, just to get it to turn over and do that is a complex process. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. All right, and it's about practice. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys on your break. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to upload it immediately. All right, and it should take like 20-30 minutes, and then you should be able to go through it in your own time. All right, for those of you that have done this and are confident, I will have a separate task for you to do, and then when people have actually finished creating it on their own, you can follow the task as suit. Okay, it's been a long morning. Go for your break.